What are the benefits of using stored procedures and UDF? The first benefit of using stored procedures and UDF is reusability of code. Let me tell you a story of how we used UDF on one of my projects. I used to work for a retail giant where we used to sell a bunch of things via retail, which means store or online. We had this concept of order margin. Order margin is the profitability that we get from a sale. Order margin depends upon various things like the location of the sale, the mode of the sale, whether it was online or from store, whether the customer was a gold member, and a bunch of other things. This logic was very complex, and initially this logic was present across the organizations in several pieces of code. It was decided that we would consolidate margin calculation into one piece of code, and everybody all over the organization would use the same logic. For that purpose, created a UDF in which we set the entire logic to calculate margin and use that whenever we needed it. In order to call the UDF, we essentially passed the order ID to the UDF and it came back with the order margin associated with that order. Using the UDF helped us simplify code management because now code for order margin was just in one place instead of being spread across the organization. We had an API which would call this UDF whenever we needed it when it was required in other places outside of Snowflake. So from what we discussed, we can see that we can achieve reusability of the code and any updates that are required can all be done in one place. We can use stored procedure in tasks as tasks can have only one SQL statement. Tasks support only one SQL statement. So if you inserted rows into a table and then you wanted to update them, you cannot have two SQL statements inside a task. The way to overcome this problem is to use a stored procedure. We can call stored procedures in tasks, and these stored procedures can have more than one SQL statement in a particular order and they can be executed through the task. Finally, very similar to point number 2, we have combined multiple statements into a sequence of execution. As you work on your project, you will encounter logic wherein you will be reading, updating, selecting, reinserting data into a bunch of tables. These are multiple statements and they need to be executed in a particular order, otherwise the output will not make sense. So for this reason, what stored procedures do for us is that they help us combine multiple statements into a sequence of execution. This pretty much covers all the benefits of using stored procedures and UDF. With that, we conclude this question. If you have the time, please join me in the next question.